seen a lot of older women getting on TikTok recently saying don't get married. And I just saw a video from a younger girl asking if those women are dead ass. And I don't know about you, but I am inclined to listen to older women. And when they say that getting married young and getting married and having children young ruin their lives, I believe them. It's like that TikTok sound going around right now that's like, and I never made it to Paris. You have all these women entering their 40s, their 50s, even their 60s, and they're realizing that they never got to live out their dreams and they never got to do all the things that they wanted to do in life because they chose to get married and have children before the age of 25. I'm 25 in a relationship, and literally one of the last things on my mind is marriage. If you're 19, 20, 21, and you're like, should I get married? Should I push my boyfriend to propose? Should I accept if he proposed? If you're questioning it, don't.
Get married. Don't ever get married. Take it from a person who has only been married 4.5 months and is already regretting it. Don't ever fucking get married, because when you do, you are no longer allowed to be your own person and you're not allowed to have anything for yourself anymore. 8 years ago, I was diagnosed with a debilitating chronic illness. Long before I ever met my wife. I deal with dizziness, tachycardia, chest pain, shortness of breath, blood pooling in my legs, headaches, blurry vision, the list goes on. Tell me why my wife has been in the ER twice this week. Twice, with dizziness, chest pain, headaches, blurry vision, blood pooling in her legs, okay? She's got a referral to go to neurology. We're worried about autonomic dysfunction. Hey girl, that's my thing. You were so threatened that I had something that was just for me that you decided you needed to go off and develop a debilitating chronic illness. You decided that you needed to be gaslit by doctors and be told that it was all in your head when it obviously wasn't. Look at her. Sick as a dog, this one. That's my thing. Even put her on the same beta blocker as me. Okay, if she starts wearing thigh-high compression socks, it's over. I'm gonna file for divorce.
Oh my goodness, whoever you marry, make sure that person is the right one. Look at this next clip though.
So you married the wrong person. Now what? I'm gonna tell you something that took me years to admit. I knew right after I got married that I had made a huge mistake. Not because we fought, not because marriage is hard. Marriage is hard. Every marriage has disagreements. This was different. Deep down, I knew I had married the wrong person. Instead of listening to that voice, I ignored it. Told myself things would get better. Maybe I thought I expected too much. Maybe if I tried harder, maybe if I loved more, maybe if I had a little more sacrifice. If I just gave it another year, 1 year became another, and then another. 23 years trying to fix something I should have been honest about from day one. And those years cost me everything. Cost me my peace, my confidence. I drank like a fish every day for 23 years and my health got terrible. Became someone I don't even recognize. I wasn't living. Nobody made me drink, but I used it to survive. Looking back, the biggest mistake wasn't marrying the wrong person. The biggest mistake was refusing to admit it. Why? I was terrified. Afraid of divorce. Afraid of starting over. What people were gonna think. I'd be alone. I failed. Fear will keep you trapped a lot harder than love ever will. Listen, please. I'm not telling you to get divorced if you had a fight. Everyone has difficult seasons in relationships and a lot of work. People can change, and they do. Relationships heal. The difference between a marriage that's struggling and one where you know is over completely. Only you know the difference. Question I wish somebody would have asked me years ago. If you met this exact person today, knowing everything you know now, would you marry them? Not who they pretended to be, who you hope they'll become. The person that's standing in front of you. And if that answer is no, you gotta go. Why? Life, guys, goes by so fast, and you ain't getting them time back. I can't. But what I can do instead of going back is use my story to warn people. Starting over was terrified, but staying would have stayed way worse. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not walking away. It's admitting to yourself that you've been walking in the wrong direction for years. If you're walking along with me, comment I'm in if you're ready to start being honest with yourself. My name is Eric, starting over at 57. I'm also an accountability coach, and I help people start over, make a plan, help you stick to that plan, change your life. 30-minute phone call once a week. It's less expensive than you think. It's $50 a week. I can help. Have a great day. Thanks for watching, guys.
That's honorable, man. He made his mistake. He realized it and he's admitting it. Now, this next clip, this is kind of a different type of regret. Look at this.
My wife is constantly having spicy time with her colleague after we opened our marriage, and I'm starting to regret it. My wife, 33 female, and I, 31 male, have been married for 6 years. Our relationship has always been strong, and our intimacy was great. We genuinely love each other and have amazing chemistry. A few months ago, she started talking a lot about her new colleague, like how good looking he is, how funny he is, etc. Last month, during a team building trip, she got drunk and texted me saying she really wanted to hook up with him. I was surprised but appreciated her honesty. Instead of cheating, she asked for my permission. I said yes. So after they were intimate together, we talked about it and agreed to open our marriage with one rule. Each of us could have one person on the side. I haven't acted on my side yet, but my wife has been seeing her colleague constantly. Last weekend, they even went on a 2-day trip together, and she said they barely left the bed. She also casually tells me the details. Even though I gave her permission, I'm starting to feel really weird and uncomfortable about how often and intensely this is happening. I'm not sure if I'm just jealous, insecure, or if we move too fast with this arrangement. Has anyone been in a similar situation? How do you deal with these feelings when your partner is much more active in the open relationship than you are? There's an edit. OP wanted to clear up a few things in the comments. First of all, this didn't come out of nowhere. We had discussed opening our marriage years ago. We agreed that we didn't want random hookups with different people all the time. Instead, we would choose one specific person to see on the side. When my wife started talking about her coworker, I jokingly said a couple of times, I guess you found your person. She would laugh and drop the topic. When she texted me from the team building event asking for permission, I already had that background in mind. That's why I said yes. We wanted to open the marriage because we love each other deeply and have great chemistry, but we were both curious about adding some spice and new experiences to our life. When it actually happened, she wasn't planning to tell me any details. I'm the one that started asking questions because I thought hearing about it might turn me on. Instead, it made me feel sad and uneasy. She noticed I was asking, so she thought it was okay to keep sharing. That's why I heard everything, like the office stuff and the trip. So the 2-day trip was the moment that really hit me. That's when I started losing respect for myself. Now I'm at a point where I don't want to continue with the open stuff.
Ooh, that's a little spicy. Now, this next lady, she reads anonymous letters people send to her about their marriage. It's gonna get good. Watch this.
My husband and I have been married just over a year, and I've regretted my decision to get married nearly every day since our wedding. We met when we were in our mid-20s, working at a company that had a reputation for promoting a culture of social drinking and partying. He was the fun, confident, universally liked guy in the office who you could always count on to be the first in line at the company bar at the end of the workday. And at 24, I was so attracted to all of these qualities. Things were great with us at first. We had lots of fun together and had a very strong connection. We fell in love. During the early years, we spent lots of time out on the town, drinking heavily and staying out late on weekends, while balancing being highly successful at work during the week. We continued like this for a couple years, until naturally the desire to go out partying all the time started to fade for me, but not so much for my husband. I wrote it off at the time, thinking he would eventually grow out of this phase, especially now that I was losing interest and moving on from that chapter of our lives. His desire to be out and about all the time did eventually start to wane. However, the drinking habits did not, and I wish I could go back and shake myself for not noticing the red flags when they began. In 2020, we bought our first home, and this is when I first started to notice that my husband's drinking habits were problematic. From the moment we moved in, it seemed like he started using every project around our house as a reason to drink. Painting required a Truly in hand. Mowing the lawn needed the reward of an IPA, or 5. We were both still working from home due to COVID, and he was drinking all hours of the day, not caring that he was on the clock. I finally decided to confront him about his drinking, and he immediately agreed he'd been taking it too far and cut back, or so I thought. It wasn't long after this conversation that I began to find empty cans and tiny liquor bottles all around the house, which I knew from experiences with my family was textbook alcoholic behavior. Confronting him about his alcohol use became a lot less civil each time. There were arguments and consistent lies from him, and it was clear he was still drinking nearly all the time, just hiding it better than before. One night, I had a breakdown which seemed to finally make him realize things were out of hand, and at that point he opened up to me about his mental health spiraling out of control as a result of the pandemic, combined with the stress of buying our home and the lack of social interaction due to working remotely. I felt bad for him, and I also felt bad for accusing him of being an alcoholic when he was really just using alcohol to cope with his feelings. After this, he ended up seeing a therapist, getting medicated for depression and anxiety, and significantly cut back on his alcohol intake. We also saw a couples therapist for a bit that helped us get to the root of some trouble the alcohol had caused in our relationship. There were a lot of things unearthed during this time, including finding out that he was in massive amounts of credit card debt due to his addiction, and that he had also been buying other drugs in secret. I was obviously upset by this, but I loved this man and wanted to be there to support him and help him work through these issues. I knew who he was deep down and never thought for a second about leaving him, despite how upset his behavior had made me. From this point, things were up and down for us. He continued to drink on weekends, and I was comfortable with that, as long as it didn't get out of hand or negatively impact our relationship. This is how we functioned for 3 years, and things were relatively fine until we got married in September 2023. Shortly after our wedding, my husband's behavior started spiraling out of control again, and this time it was worse than ever before. He had started a new job that required him to be in an office 5 days a week, and began coming home drunk every night of the week. There were even some days he wouldn't come home. He would tell me he was going to a friend's house, when really he'd been getting drunk at a strip club, or even worse, driving around aimlessly, putting everyone around him in danger. Confrontation and arguments got more and more aggressive between us, and I was in constant fear of what he would do next. After weeks of this, I was finally able to rally his family and friends to get him into rehab, where he stayed for 10 short days before he left, saying he didn't need to be there, and that his counselors at the facility weren't worried about him. He wasn't a changed man. He was going through the motions. This was in February of 24, and he relapsed in May 24, while I was on vacation with my best friend. He blamed me for leaving him alone as the reason for his antics, and continued to spiral out of control once I was home. This was just 3 weeks before we were set to leave on our very much non-refundable honeymoon to Alaska. In the weeks leading up to our trip, he flip-flopped back and forth between spiraling out of control and trying to get back on the right track. The few days leading up to our honeymoon, he was sober and clear-headed, so we decided to continue with the trip as planned. I'm sure I don't need to tell you that this was a huge mistake. I won't go into detail, but during our cruise, security ended up being involved with us more than once, and I eventually moved to a room away from him on the ship and ended up spending the majority of the cruise alone. It was a nightmare. When we returned from our honeymoon from hell, it was all hands on deck to get him back into rehab ASAP. I had set a clear boundary with him that if he didn't get sober, our relationship was over, and back to rehab he went in early July. Another short stint in a full-time facility, followed by a partial hospitalization program, followed by an outpatient program, and he is back to sobriety with a different, more positive outlook than I had seen from him in the past. He's been sober now since July, and things between us have definitely improved, and my constant anxiety and fear of what he may do next is starting to fade. Unfortunately, so has my attraction to him. I've been so emotionally exhausted by this man's behavior over this last year that I can barely bring myself to say I love him anymore. I do still care about him, but I'm worried that the sobriety won't last, and I'm also still hurt and angry at the way he's treated me. I feel guilty because I know he's working so hard at sobriety, and I should be grateful since this is what I wanted, but instead I feel numb. My friends and family think I should leave him, and I have heavily considered it. But I'm always struck by the guilt of feeling like I'm giving up on him when he's finally making strides in the right direction. I'm also just so embarrassed to have landed myself in this situation. I know it's probably hard to believe based on this story, but I'm actually a very smart, successful, and independent person, and I never thought I could end up in a situation where I couldn't see the red flags as they presented themselves. As of October 2024, we are seeking help from a couples therapist to see if we can work things out, but at this point, I'm not feeling optimistic. I'm now at a point where I'm so conflicted about what to do next. There are days where I'm inches away from pulling the divorce trigger, and then there are other days when I'm sobbing just thinking about him no longer being in my life. I've truly never felt more lost, and I wouldn't wish this feeling on anyone. This story was submitted in October of 2024, so if the woman who submitted it is watching, I would love an update from you if you would like to provide one. I'm 50 years old and exceedingly regretful of my marriage of almost 20 years to my husband, age 52. This is my second marriage, and I never ever should have gone through with the wedding. I berate myself daily for ignoring the many red flags from the start and then for staying for all these years. The shame I feel is extreme. Unfortunately, I am now financially stuck due to significant health issues. My spouse and I got together immediately after my divorce was final. I was lonely and vulnerable. I shared custody of my then 10-year-old son with my ex. My spouse was the first man to show interest in me in a decade. I now know it was love bombing. My spouse was very clear that he was child-free by choice, which was fine with me. I didn't feel I was in a position to have any more than the one child due to finances. While he didn't want his own children, he claimed that other people's children were fine and that he, my son, and I would be a family. After a year of dating, we bought a house together. I should have known right away that something was wrong. Literally, the day we moved in together, my spouse's interest in sex and touch completely evaporated. During what should have been the honeymoon period, having sex monthly was too much for him. He always had excuses. Also, he never initiated sex. And I mean never. We've been together almost 20 years, and he has vaguely initiated sex 5 times. 5 in 20 years. Eventually, he demanded to sleep alone. He demanded that I not enter his bedroom, his bathroom. Further, within a few months of us living together with my son, it was obvious that my spouse wanted nothing to do with him. I gently brought up his extreme avoidance after about 3 months. My spouse got very upset and said he needed more time to cultivate a relationship. Well, 19 years have passed, and he's barely exchanged 100 words with my now adult son. My spouse was never harsh or unkind to my son. He just never interacted with him. My son and I tried during the early years to involve my spouse in family nights, game night, movie night, hikes, beach trips, etc. The spouse wasn't interested. Eventually, my son and I gave up trying to involve him. You can only hear no so many times before you absorb that the person is simply not interested. Roughly 6 months into us living together, which was about 3 months after we got married, I gently approached my spouse to ask him why he seemed very reluctant to have sex with me. He screamed at me and demanded I remove my clothes right then. For the first time, I was afraid of him. I made a joke about it and said maybe later, but it shook me to my core, seeing his face contorted in rage because I dared to try and bring up our lack of a sex life. As time went on, he began to jokingly refer to me as a dirty whore for ever wanting sex. It was humiliating. Yet he has such thin skin and absolutely cannot tolerate even the mildest ribbing in return. Another issue is that my spouse is an extreme workaholic. He claims it's always been because we needed the money, but that is simply not true. He almost flunked out of high school because he worked so many hours and was too tired to get up for school. So this behavior long predated me. 70-plus hour work weeks are the norm for him. It was truly like being married to a ghost. This second marriage was 1,000 times lonelier than I thought possible. I could go on for 100 pages about the spouse's constant friendships he has had with lonely, needy, vulnerable single moms at work or with women whose marriages are in crisis. He doesn't befriend men. He claims he doesn't get along with men well, only women. However, Most of these women took what they could get from him: lunches out, legal help, money, outings, work promotions, etc. Eventually, these women would start dating someone, and my spouse would sulk as if he'd been broken up with. 5 years ago, he decided he wanted to move closer to his family and convinced me it was a good idea. I left my family, friends, and entire support system to be with him. Within weeks, he was never home. He was always at work, going back to work, checking in with work, etc. He would never let me know when or if he would be home. He wouldn't respond to a single text. Because he demands to sleep separately, I could go for up to a week at a time without seeing him or having contact. The spouse would leave for work before I got up, return after I was in bed, and never respond to any contact. At times, he came in after 1 a.m. Once, he didn't show up at home until 4:30 a.m., and he was angry that I was upset. He thought it was absurd that I was giving him a hard time about coming home 11 hours after work ended without a word. Eventually, it became clear why. As I mentioned, the spouse always had a thing for lonely single moms at work. It just so happened that one was his subordinate again. For the sake of brevity, let me say that he threw a huge 50th birthday for her. He involved her children, spent months curating costly gifts, had an expensive cake made with pictures of her on it, special ordered posters, a birthday sash, and decorations with her pictures on all of it, and paid for catering. He even curated a special playlist. What happened on my birthday, my son's birthday? The spouse forgot them, and they are mere days away from his coworkers. Not only that, the spouse forgot my simple birthday lunch and instead went to work on a weekend day to catch up. Then I discovered he was on dating apps. He blamed me for all of it. He said he'd been unhappy in the marriage for many years, that I had mistreated him, and he had never said a word. I was shocked. Slowly, through therapy and the support of friends and family, I realized that I had put up with so much from this man. The last time he said he loved me was before our wedding, almost 20 years ago. I have not received a single compliment from him since then. In fact, he didn't even say that I looked nice on our wedding day. He does, however, demand that I not wear heels. He's extremely insecure about his height, and I am slightly taller than he is. After his emotional affair, I decided I was going to wear 1-inch heels to an event with him because I liked the way they looked with my outfit. I dressed nicely and took extra time with my appearance. He made fun of me, comparing me to an elderly duchess, and got angry about my heels. After nearly 2 decades of dealing with his subtle jokes about my ethnicity, the fact that I ever wanted to have sex, the foods I ate, the discount stores I shopped at, and the fact that he would be moody, sullen, and avoidant when around my family and friends, but not his, along with his demands to spend as little time together as possible, I finally realized I'm the one who's mistreated, gaslit, and misled. From the first year of our marriage, I thought something was terribly wrong with me, and if I just tried harder, he would like me. He never did. He never will. I wish I had never married him. To the woman who wrote this, you say you are now financially stuck due to significant health issues, but I really, really hope that you can find a way out of this because this is no way for you to live. And I don't know what your health issues are, but I wonder if you got away from this man, if your health issues might clear up, because the impact to your nervous system over these 20 years has got to be significant. And to anyone watching who might be in a similar situation, I want you to think about what it would cost you to leave now versus what it might cost you to leave, or the fact that you may not be able to leave if you wait longer, if you wait until you are in a position where you can't financially leave because you have health issues, and do everything you can to take your life back and put yourself back in control, because this is no way to live.
And what makes that crazy, them letters are anonymous. Hopefully they're telling their husbands. Some of these letters, they probably could say they are telling them, they probably not. Who knows, okay? Who knows the real truth, okay? If you guys know anybody going through this, or if you're going through your own marriage to regret, but you're still with the person, let me know down in the comments. I'd like to hear it. Also, if you think this is something, you got people that are seeing the cost of divorce and how expensive it is. If you want to see that, click right here. It's Josh from Talk to Him, but I just talked to you, boy. Y'all stay married. Peace.